Thanks everyone for joining. We're going to show you Insights Manager. I think most of you know me. My name is Ellen Stevens, and who will be giving you the training is, there's an echo.
I am. Oh no.
I see it. That was hilarious.
How dare you insinuate?
Now I'm muted. You should be good now.
Okay. Who's going to be giving you the training is Sky Culver. She is our Associate Manager for Insights. I do have a favor to ask because we want this training to be very interactive. If you are to speak, if you could state your name, because to be honest, I'm sorry, but neither Sky or I recognize voices. Like I had to ask who Amy was. So I'm going to turn it over to Sky. You can get into Insights through Aspera One. There is a link that says AO Insights. Unfortunately, Sky and I do not have AO privileges to Vermont's UAT. So we're just going to start with the Insights page. Does that make sense?
How would we normally navigate there?
It's on the launch pad.
Yep, you would always have it on the launch pad. So it's going to be right under inventory. Got it. Say F1. Thank you. You're welcome.
And what AO does is we have single sign-on. So it takes your roles and permissions from Aspera One, and it does a little modification because they're not the same roles and permissions in Insights, and creates the proper Insights roles and permissions. So with all of that being said, Sky, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I am, how's everyone doing?
Good.
Good. Y'all ready to dig into data?
Yeah.
Awesome. Like Ellen said, we want this to be very interactive. So interrupt me, stop me, ask questions, ask me to show you things that I haven't shown. We have quite a bit of time here. So I learn from you and you learn from me. And so it makes it a great experience if you just jump in. So,
Okay, so I'll start.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Is our data in here already?
Yes, the UAT data is, yes. Okay. So when you land on this screen, you see it's a pretty white screen. From here, we want to do some ad hoc views. And so to get there, we go to Create Ad Hoc View.
Sky, this is Amy. Is there any way to make your screen just a little bit bigger?
Bigger. I always forget that. Tell me when it's good.
I'm not on a bad eyesight. Thank you.
I'm going to take it back down one more if that's okay. On my screen, it looks a little funny, but okay. So for ad hoc views, this is what we offer. We have four different not for ad hoc views, for domains. That's what we call these, and we have four different ones. And I'm going to go over what each one of these covers, and then we'll dig into each one to get more detail. So the admin domain. This is what we call internally a configuration domain. It's to give you a look at how you've configured AO in certain areas. We don't have all areas in there right now, but on the launch pad where it says, I think it's administrator or administration, there's some things from there that we have included in this domain, so you can see how a user set up for their applications, for their features, for their roles, just to make sure it's set up the way you really wanted it to be. Just gives you the ability to dig in a little bit. Customer activity domain gives you a view of what a customer has done in AO. Reservations, their address, their, I apologize, I just drew a blank on what all it covers. It has many areas in it, but you don't use all you don't use permits. I saw we have no data for permits. We just had reservations in there and customer data along with address data. And we'll dig in to see what more is in there. Financial domain covers payments that customers have made, and we can query to what they've done and the status of it, and if it's been refunded and revenue and stuff. And then site utilization gives an overview of a site on the days it's available, the days it's closed, days it's occupied, along with a little bit more detail from there. Any questions so far? Okay. I'm going to start with the admin domain. You select it and then you say choose data at the bottom. The next screen takes that domain and breaks it up into what we call domain groups here. And in this particular domain, these are not connected, so you can only select one of these. And we tried to name them to match what is in AO, so you knew, oh, this comes from the admin manager link, this is the finance manager link, and this is the inventory manager link. So if I expand this, I can see, oh, that's in the drop down at the top, security, user roles, locations, it's named the same. So you can go back to AO and investigate further if you need to look at something. So I'm going to select this first one, and you get the single arrow to bring it over here to the right, and then say OK at the bottom. And then the next thing it does is it takes that domain category or domain group and then breaks it up into domain categories. And it does fields and measures. Fields are detailed data with the fields, like the user name, first name, last name, zip code, address. And then in the bottom, it does measures. So anything we want to aggregate or sum. In this case, I just have user count and then some counts on application, feature, location, and role count. One thing I will tell you, I played with this earlier, and you can have a lot, because a user can have a lot of applications, can have a lot of features, can have a lot of roles tied to it. This can be a lot of data, but we're going to go ahead and select a few things. Another thing to point out is it defaults to a crosstab. Does anyone work in Excel with pivot tables?
Way above my level, right?
Okay, so a crosstab is equivalent to a pivot table for Excel. So if anyone works in that. And then with the other options we have are table, which is detail level row straight from our database, and then charts, and pretty graphs and bar charts and line charts and pie charts. And then the other thing is, if you see it here, it's defaulted to sample data. Sample data just gives you a top 100 selection from the database based on the query that you're pulling. So anytime you add fields or measures to a view, it's building a query behind the scenes. So if you kind of know what you're looking for, but you need to play around a little bit to make sure you're getting exactly what you want, sample data allows you to see that. Full data is it's going to pull everything, well, the top 2 million rows from your query onto the report. That could take some time depending on what you've added. No data is very helpful if you already know what you want to pull and you want to throw like 10 columns out there. You can do no data, throw the 10 columns out there, and then change it to sample or full and let it pull the data all at once. Because if you do one column at a time, it's building a query every time you add a column. So it takes just a minute. So I'm going to leave it on.
Wait, excuse me. Sorry, Rochelle and company, because you are going to explore your data, best practice and recommendation is that you go to a table view, because then you're seeing the row level data until you've mastered your data. In other words, you know it really well. I'm not saying you don't, but this is a bit of a different structure, different application. And this helps. So you know that you are grabbing the correct data, because a crosstab is a pivot table, so it's aggregating some things, and you can think you're going the right way and end up going the wrong way.
That's good advice. Thank you.
So along with that, the first thing I was going to say, since this is all new to everyone, is when you open up a new domain and get to this point, I do this myself after we've developed domains. I change it to a table, leave it on sample data. I will come over to the left, I'll grab this users one here, and I can grab the whole thing, drop it into columns, and then just see what gets returned. For one, I can see what columns there are. I could also see the columns on the left-hand side here if I just expand, but I can see the data in them to know, oh, okay, this deleted indicator is a true false. Okay, that's good to know. Or first name looks good, or I don't have like the state and the middle name, just to make sure everything looks like how I expect it to look. And then I will take that off, and I can do that one of two ways. I can hit this back button, undo last change, clears it, or I can hit this swirly arrow thing that resets the report to the last saved state, which I've never saved, so it clears it all back to the beginning. That will also set this drop down to a crosstab, just so you know, so be aware of that. So from here, does anyone have any questions so far? Okay. Then I'm going to throw some things out here. If y'all want to see something different, just let me know. What this domain is best used for is, like I said earlier, just to see how things are set up. So I'm going to start with a username, and I double click that, and it put it up in the columns, which is where I wanted it. I can either double click or I can drag drop, either one. And I'm going to pick one of these names. Yeah, so I want to filter on one so we can see a full view of one user. So I'm going to right click username and say create filter. I can do this in one of three places right now on the report. I can do it on the left hand side, create filter. I can do it from the column up top, right click create filter, or I can do it on the column header, right click create filter. When I do that, it adds the username as a filter over on the right hand side. And there's a couple of things we need to talk about here. See, it defaults to equals. If I click that little arrow next to equals, I get different options. I can do is one of, which is a multi-select. I can do is not one of, if I wanted everyone but the admin, or everyone but the admin and say a spare one internal people. I see some what look like those may be internal usernames. Or if I wanted is not equal to or equal, and contains. Contains is kind of cool just across the board, maybe not necessarily for a username. If you're looking for a product that has cabin in it, you could say just, and it could be at the beginning, the middle, the end. You can just say contains cabin. And then starts with. I've never really seen anyone use ends with, but it's an option if someone has a need for it. So I am going to also down here, and it shows kind of funny sometimes. If I expand it, you can see this says select all, deselect, and invert. So right now they're selected all. I'm going to deselect all, and then I'm going to pick a few of these. Some weird user names in there. Go to the bottom. Okay, here we have some Vermont ones. Here, I'll pick on these. These kind of look generic. Pick two of those. And notice when I selected, I have available 215 usernames, and I selected two of them. So I can come over here and deselect these two. And that's useful if I had like 20, but I really want to take two of them out, then I can come this tab and just deselect two. And then at the bottom, I'm going to hit apply. So there are my two. And for these people, I want to see what application they have access to. So I'm going to add application. And this is where it's building the query behind the scenes. And so there we go. Now remember, this is row level detail data. So, and I'm on sample data. So the VT call 11 dropped off because it didn't qualify into the top so many rows that it returned. And it looks duplicated. Well, that's because there's something in this data that makes VT call 10 and call manager look duplicated, but there's another column that is actually distinct. I'm going to guess it's role. But before I do that, one thing I want to do is I actually want to group on username. And so I'm going to move username down here to groups. And then I'm going to add role. First, I only want active roles. And anytime you see an active indicator or a deleted indicator, You probably need to include those if you're just wanting the records that have not been deleted and the active records. So I'm going to right click, create filter. And it's spinning because this one is going through a lot of data. And so it spun for a minute to add it to the right-hand side, and now it's going to spin to populate the options. So in this case, they're all active because it's only giving me a true. So I'm going to select it just to make sure and hit apply. And then I'm going to add role to the columns. And I'm going to add feature. Well, and I just saw this one, so feature assigned. I want the feature assigned to this user. I want to see all features. And I'm going to say yes. To yes and apply. And I believe it goes application feature role in Aspire 1. And so I'm going to add feature to in between application and role when it is done. And I drag dropped it so that it would put it where I wanted it. Okay, so here we see it's now no longer, I guess I could actually reverse role and feature, but it's no longer duplicated, it's now distinct rows. Did that make sense? Okay, good. Other than that, from this particular domain, this one's really just to check to make sure users are set up with the proper role and features application that the administrator wanted them to have. There's not much else out of this view. Does anyone have any questions about it?
No.
Okay. Then do you,
How many rows are there if you do full data? Just out of curiosity.
how many rows are there?
Yeah,
It will max at 2 million. I don't know if your data has that.
That is okay.
Remember the permissions list?
Yeah, no, I'm remembering the permissions list. I don't need to see it. I was just curious.
Well, and if you have 2 million, that may take a while to bring back.
Yeah.
If, and actually what it would do is, I say it would max, it would error out if you had more than 2 million. And that's one thing to check. Like if it spins for a bit and then you get an error, it doesn't tell you on your side that it's a row limit. It would tell, we would have to go investigate back on the server to find out what the technical error was, and it tells us. But I would try to filter first to see if it comes back with data. That way you're not having to wait to go through the process to get all the way to us to go, oh, it's a row limit error. You need to filter.
And let me explain why there's a 2 million row limit. It's to ensure that performance for all of our clients, not just Vermont, happens well. If someone is trying to bring back 10 million rows, it can cause the server to slow down. Each Insights app instance is separate. So Vermont has a Vermont Data Mart and a Vermont instance of Insights. Our other clients have their own. However, everybody shares a very large server farm, a server cluster. So that's why we limit it. And 2 million rows, that's a lot of rows.
This is Karen. I am wondering, so you mentioned that, you know, this admin domain is divided up. There's like the admin manager and then the finance manager. So if you go into finance manager within this domain instead of admin, is that showing you information like how taxes and stuff like that are set up, or is it showing like financial user information?
Let me show you. So to switch to that one, I'm going to take, can y'all see this little bitty box to the right of the domain name? When I just hover over it, it pops up change source, select fields. So I'm going to, I was curious, I forgot what that part did. So I'm change source. I'm going to pick admin domain again, choose data. Finance manager for right now is just account summary information. So it just tells you how your accounts are set up. And then inventory manager, which I believe y'all did not have, is vehicles. Y'all don't use vehicles, right?
That's correct. They're not using vehicles in our terminology.
That's good. So we have more to add to finance manager in the future. It's just right now, this is what we have available.
What in the future, is it not added currently because it's not featured yet and you just see it forthcoming, or is it just not information that's like uploaded into the system yet?
It's not, we haven't upgraded. Well, it's coming in a future release from Insights Manager. And it's going to be like fee schedule, tax schedules. Those are the main ones for finance manager. Fee schedule, tax schedule. We have the account information, and we don't have it planned yet, but discounts also will be in there.
So we enhance insights in the data mart on a regular basis, and we add new features and functionality. Currently, yes, we do notify you. And
Find the new.
So you understand what
So
the
that
process.
will typically, oh, sorry, Ellen. I was just to say that will typically come from Stacia as your client manager. They'll typically notify you when new features are made available.
Right. And what our process is when we add a new feature or functionality, we put it into UAT first. Stacia will notify you. We ask you guys to test it. Once you've approved it, then we move it to production. We release once a month. Not all the time, monthly, do we release new features and functions, but it's the third week of every month that we release things.
Any other questions about the admin domain?
Nope.
Okay, let's move on to customer activity, because I think we can spend some time here. And probably y'all will have a lot of questions about this one. So I'm just like that, choose data. From here, all these are connected. Well, not like every one of them is connected, but there's connection between all of these domain categories. So I can select all to add to the report, or I could select 1 and 2 if I was only interested in 2 areas. In this case, I want to select dog. I'm going to hit the double arrows. It puts it all on the right-hand side, and then I'm going to say OK. Now this domain is for all camping clients, so there are parts in here that some clients use that others don't. So if you pull something out and it's blank, it just may not be what you use in the spare one. An example of that, because I was testing earlier, I changed this to a table. I was going through each one of these to see what areas y'all cover. And like I think Amy said earlier, you don't use vehicles. So I threw vehicles out here and it just returns nothing. But I did see, of course, you use reservations. So usually there's a lot of information people want to know about that. So let's throw a few things out and see what we can do. So leaving it on table and sample data, I'm going to throw a reservation number out here. And I want all reservations, let's say, made last month. So I want to filter on reservation date time. So I right click, create filter. And here I have a couple options for date time. It defaults to equal, so if I wanted just one day, I can do for one day, but I want for last month. I can do this two different ways. I can change this equals to is between, and then I can change this to 12/1/2019, and I want from midnight, so I change these. And here I can also do a date picker. So I can just go back to last month, say the 31st. It ends at 10:55. I want it to go all the way to the end. I can slide these. And I don't know why it does that. When you pick one, it goes off of it, but just keep going back in. So from the whole month of December, hit apply. And I'm going to throw the date time out there to see it. So these were reservations made in the month of December with the, I'm going to throw arrival date and departure date out there. So this is when they plan to arrive and depart. And I want to know for by location, by park. So we have a location domain category. If you looked here and said, well, what park is this for? And take a look at the rest of these domain categories and see if something might fit. So there's location, and we call park facility. And I want to group by it because I want all the parks reservations together. So I'm going to throw that in the group. Okay, I like how it did that. And then I want to throw the site type, site code on there. To get an idea. Now from here, let's say I only want really campsite tent reservations. I'm going to filter on that. Right click, create filter. And that's a pretty big list, so I can search through it by typing in the search box and start campsite. And it filters as I type. So I'm going to do campsite tent RV and say apply.
Okay, can I pause you there for a second? This is Rochelle.
Okay.
So this is data that came from Lloyd's December dump. Is that correct?
Ellen.
No, it came from the January 3rd dump.
Okay, so I should be able to go back to my legacy system, run a reservation report for the month of December, and I'm only seeing a handful of reservations. 15, that seems like for a whole month. That seems wrong.
This is just the 3 parts, and it's only the sample data.
This is sample, yeah, this is sample data, not full data. You see up there, Sky, hit that sample data. See, it's on
But
sample.
that's 100 lines, right?
I beg your pardon?
Sample data is 100 lines.
It's 100 or so. It's kind of random. It just gives you a sampling. Go ahead and hit full data, Sky. Now you have the whole list. See how it keeps going? And what you can do then is you can export this into Excel and print it off, or use it in Excel to take a look at things. You need to be real careful because sample data is just a random top 100 or top 50. It depends on the query itself.
Okay.
And remember, Rochelle, we're going to reload UAT this evening. So
Okay.
all the data that from the January 3rd data dump from Lloyd will be in there.
Okay. And just a pause, Serena, where do we have it captured, which reports are from insights versus stock reports? Is that on the spreadsheet? Didn't Erica, did you send us a spreadsheet with that? Like a report in that?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So back, I think when we finished our report discussions in November, I sent you, I think, like a final version of that. I can't remember the exact date, I apologize, but I can send it again. But yes, it indicates there's a column that says Insights report, and there's an indication there if we intended for you to meet that RTM using Insights.
Perfect.
This is Karen. I just want to, because this is supposedly from the January 3rd dump from Lloyd. In December, there were 3 reservations made for Alice, and you only show 1. So where would that gap come from? Like, why is that not, it does look like you're returning full data. Why is full data not appearing to be returned accurately?
Okay, Karen, you said in Alice State Park, did you say that there were 3 and we're only returning 1?
Keep
Yep.
it.
Is that one of the 1,060 that were rejected, maybe?
Okay, remember what she's filtering on. She's
Yeah.
filtering on in December, and she's filtering on site type equals campsite tent / RV. I don't know if those other 2 reservations where the site type is campsite tent / RV.
After.
There we go.
There they are. See? There are the 3 of them.
Good.
Hey, Ellen, it's Michelle. I think the other factor that we need to call out, maybe not for this example, but Rochelle, didn't we get the latest version of the data from Lloyd? It was just before December 3rd, right?
On January 3rd.
I think. Oh, we did get another one. Okay, my apologies.
Right. Any other questions about what we have so far?
Sky, could you show them how to dump this report into Excel, please?
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, while you were
Great.
talking, this button here and our options for exporting PDF, Excel, that's the 97 through 2003 version, CSV, Word documents, XLSX, and that's the after 2007, and then PowerPoint are options that we can export in.
Can you
And
please show us the Excel sheet again?
Yeah, it went away, so let me just redo it with what I changed anyways. So I hit XLSX, it's loading, and then when we open it, looks, there we go. Basically what we had on the screen.
Cool.
Okay.
So Rochelle, when you guys are validating that Insights contains what you think it should contain, like Karen said, it's missing those 3. This is one way you can do it, is create the ad hoc view and dump it into Excel and do your validation, or you can certainly do it via the screen, right? You don't have to put it in Excel.
Okay, some other go ahead.
I just said good, thank you.
Oh, okay, good. From here, just some other features I want you to be aware of. Let's take the site reservation date, time. I want it in order. It looks kind of chaotic here when it happened. I can sort on this column. I can either right click, use it for sorting, or I can click this AZ up here. And by clicking the AZ, I can pick several fields to sort on. Right click, use for sorting, and it will pop up that same thing with the one I want to sort on. In ascending, I can change it to descending by clicking this little arrow. Say OK. And then also, because I have groupings, I may want some counts. So I'm going to right click the site reservation number because I want to count how many reservations I have per park. And I'm going to add a summary. And it adds it to, well, on the very bottom, and I do not know how many parks you have, so that could be a pretty long list. But the other thing I want to do is see this little gear right here. It defaults to detailed data. I could just do totals data. So it got rid of all my detail and gave me just counts, or I can do details and totals, which is more what I'm looking for. And then because I don't know how long this is to scroll, I would export this to Excel so then I could go all the way to the bottom faster if I just need to see a total. Also, one thing you can do is see how right here, this is wrapping, which is okay sometimes, but you may not want it to wrap. You can kind of hover between the two columns till it turns to the arrows and bars, and then extend it out so that it no longer wraps, which is what you can do in Excel too.
So this is Karen. So since the financial domain is a different domain, my assumption is that financial information is not included here. So if we wanted to see the revenue associated with any of these reservations listed here, would we have to switch the domain?
Well, we do have some fee data in here. And I say that with, depending on what it is you're trying to accomplish, you could use this domain to get some dollar amounts, or depending on your purpose, it may have to be the financial domain. So like if we wanted to see here, we have order item fee amount, quantity sold, tax amount, order paid amount, price amount, and balance. So I could throw, let's see, item fee amount on here along with tax amount. Oh, there's no tax on reservations, is that right?
No, that's not right.
Oh.
Well, I think it varies, right, Karen? Not all campgrounds have tax on their sites.
All campgrounds that have lean-tos or shelters or pavilions, they all should have taxes. It's just the tent sites that don't.
I've never seen billions.
Or I'm
This
sorry.
is migrated data. I'm not sure that we broke that out. I think since we didn't take the payment in a spare one, it's just one amount. Is
That's
that correct,
correct.
Ellen?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll
This is
remove
for the migrated data, so you can remove tax amount. Granted, Karen, that means when someone makes a reservation in a Spera one, you will see the taxes, but for migrated data, it wasn't broken out that way.
But if we choose order paid amount, that would include the taxes.
Correct.
See, like 63 and 70. But this order paid amount is at the order level. If there was more than one thing on the order, there could be a difference there too.
That's what that $7 difference is.
Right, right.
So again, for the financial piece, depending on what your purpose is, you could use this one if that satisfied it, or we can go to the financial domain and do it there.
If you take a look at what's in here, this whole customer activity domain was meant to, so you could see what your customers are doing at the various facilities that you have. It has a lot of information. Yes, Karen, you're right. Depending upon what you want to do with financial information, it may not be in here. This is more customer centric and what they're doing, how they're making their reservations, what site they're making, the site type they're making their reservations on, et cetera, et cetera. What I am going to ask Guy to do is, I think that this is really a good ad hoc view to save. So you guys have a starting point at something. So she's going to show you how to save it, unless you have other questions or you want to filter or bring in other data here.
Good.
Okay.
And one other thing I want to point out before we do save is the click to add title. If you wanted to put a title on this, you just left click in it. It does this and you can change it to, I'm just going to say reservation details. And then just click off. Well, click off of, there it goes. All right, so to save, we have a save button. And we have two different options for saving. We can, well, it gives you three. The save ad hoc view would be if it's already saved. Save it as something and save it as a view and create a report. In this case, I am going to create it as a view and a report. I'm going to check that one. And there's two places you can save it. When you log into Insights through SSO, you get a personal folder. This is the user I'm using. And you get a shared folder. The shared folder means everyone in Vermont can see whatever ad hoc view and reports you've saved out there. And if they have the ability to modify or create, they can also modify any ad hoc views out there. Just to be aware of that. So you may put a note like, do not change this without talking to me or something like that, just so everyone knows that they don't need to change that one. I'm going to save this in the shared folder so everyone can see it. And I know I put the title reservation details, but is that a good name for y'all?
Put in December 2019, so we know it was just that month.
Well, that's changeable though. That's a filter that you could change.
Okay.
I'll put by month. How about that? You know, you can go in and change that. And just save that there. And I'm going to hit save. Now, let's say and one thing I did do here, and I normally don't, is I saved it as full data. In this case, that may not be such a big deal, but if it was pulling back a lot of data and you saved it as full data, then when you go to open it again, it's going to pull all that data again. It may spin for a bit. So you may want to save it as no data, just especially if you may want to change this in the future and you don't want to wait for it to spin to return all that data just to change it. So save it as no data or sample data, and then change it to full data whenever you're ready to see the full report. Just as an idea.
She's saying this because you can't interact with the ad hoc view until it completes execution. So if you save something in full data and it takes a while, I don't want you to get frustrated.
Okay, that's good advice.
Okay, so to access the saved view and or report, we're going to go to View, Repository. And you'll see these two different public and then the Vermont specific folder. The public one you can look at, there's nothing you can do with it. It just has the data source and the domain names in here. No real reason to go there. So we'll go to Vermont, we're going to go to the shared folder. And here are the two, the view and the report that I saved. The thing about
Sorry, Sky, and you see that there's a type, so it clearly states whether it's an ad hoc view or a report. In the report, you don't have the flexibility of adding additional columns, deleting columns, etc. It's just a standard report.
Gotcha.
I clicked on it so you can see what it looks like. And the report does have full data no matter what. It doesn't give you the option. It will just pull it back. Here's what it looks like. It looks pretty good. It's visually more appealing than just the view. You have some options here. You can see it goes from page 1 to 31. So here, this would be easier to hit the double arrows to take me to the very end. It gives me my totals at the end, which I like. Go back to the beginning. You can change you can zoom in, zoom out. But the other thing you can do here is this little box. If you hover over it, it says options. If you click it, it's our filters. So we can change the filters and run this report for any other date range that we wanted in this case. Cancel, and then I can export again to those same exact export options. The other good thing about a report is you can schedule it. You can't do it with a view. If I right click here on a view, schedule is not an option. But if I right click the report, here's schedule. And let's say let's say you wanted to run this report on the first of every month for the previous month, and then you wanted to email yourself and maybe a few other people. So from here, I'm going to create a schedule. I get some options. I can run it right now, but I don't want to. I want to run it on the first of every month. So let's pretend today is January 1, which is a holiday, but still will work for the holiday. And we can pick a recurrence. I want to repeat it every month. So well, every 4 weeks in this case. And I want to run it indefinitely. And there is this option to exclude holidays, and New Year's Day is the only option we have in there right now, but if it automatically runs, why not have it run New Year's Day also? So I'll leave that as none. And then I'm going to come over to the parameters. Oh, in the past. Okay, we're going to pretend differently. Parameters, and it's our month. Now, we don't want to always run it for December 2019. We want to run it for the previous month. So what we're going to do here is we have what's called relative date ranges or named date ranges. And so I'm going to say month -1, which takes me back to, so let's say today's February 1st. It's going to take me back to January 1, and I'm going to say day -1. So it's running on February 1st through yesterday, January 31st. If this was March 1st, it would go through February 29th this year. And so then you don't have to come in every time it's going to run and update the dates it's set for you. Then we're going to go over to output options. And we have it with the file name. We always just default it to what it defaults to. And then we're going to change it to Excel, XLSX, and uncheck PDF, but you could have it export to several of these if you had different reasons for them. And leave everything else the same as is, just change the output options. And then notifications. This is where you pick who it goes to, separated by commas. And just down here at the bottom where it says report files as attachments, that's the default. That's what you want to leave it as. So if you changed it to a repository link, then whoever you send it to has to have access to insights. As an attachment, it can go to anybody, even if they don't have access. And you can CC, BCC, subject and message, just like a typical email. And then you hit save, and it would run it February 1st for January 20th.
And Rochelle, the email that you receive is from noreply@aspera.com.
Okay, thank you.
This is Karen. The like month -1, day -1, is there a resource somewhere that we're going to be provided that gives us like little like keys like that, like how we would enter something? Because I mean, without knowing that, I wouldn't necessarily think, oh, I need to type month. Oh, thank you.
Sky is going to send this to you after the meeting. Actually, she's going to send it to Erica and Stacia, and Erica and Stacia can supply it to you guys. I also this morning supplied to Erica and Stacia that what we call the domain data dictionaries that explains what each measure and field is. And you should be getting that shortly as well. That helps also.
Hey, Ellen, can you actually send it to Michelle and Centel along with us, please, so we can track it?
Sure, will do.
And just curious, if this is Rochelle, if there's variables that can be built in, like let's say, can you run this report for each, how do you tell it to run a report for every facility for their own data and automatically send it on a certain date? Is that possible?
You would have to create a filter in the view for facility. And then when you schedule it, you would, how many facilities do you have? Do you know off the top of your head?
55.
So then you would have to create a schedule, one for Alice State Park or the name date ranges, schedule it to send it to whoever you need it to go to, then create another schedule for Big Deer State Park. So no, there's not a way to do a variable, but you could create 55 schedules.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then if there was a change that needed to be made to it, like to the output of the report, let's say Big Deer State Park asked for something else. If you change the ad hoc view, it's going to go to all parks that same change if they're scheduled. That makes sense?
Say that again?
So if Big Deer State Park asked for status, because I didn't add it on here, reservation status to be added, then you would add it to the view, you would save it, save the reports, or save the report also, and then all the schedules based on that report would get that same change. So they would all get status added to it in their next
But
run.
if I had it just for Big Deer, it would be just for Big Deer.
If you wanted it just for Big Deer, then you would need to save this ad hoc view for Big Deer with status added, and then they have a separate view report combo.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions about customer activity, anything they want to see?
Let's just look at the field list. User modified is always a good one.
At the bottom, I'm trying to make it big enough so that you can see all of them.
Can we see, I guess because it's migrated, maybe we can't see the sales channel? Like, was it made on the web in the park?
Do you want me to add that to this current one, or do you want me to start a whole new view?
No, you can add it here.
Okay. There we go.
Awesome. So it does carry over from migrated data. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Good.
Rochelle, do you want us to resave this report with the sales channel?
Sure, just so I remember that it's there, that'd be helpful.
Okay. Can you resave it, Sky?
Yeah, I'm going to move it though, because I like to have measures
Yeah,
at the
me
end.
too.
So I'm just going to kind of throw it there and see. And since it's already saved, I already did save as, I'm going to just do save view. And it's going to tell me, but you have a report dependent upon this view. So do you want to save that report with this change? And I'm going to say save. So it does save the report.
Good.
And one other thing I wanted to point out to y'all, for those name date ranges, I don't know why it doesn't do it whenever you're scheduling the report, but over here, it has fixed timestamp and relative timestamp. And this is those name date ranges that lets you pick them here. I meant to show you that before I did the schedule and I forgot. And I don't know why it does that. It clicks off of it so you can add for the next quarter or for the previous quarter or 2 quarters. Or so that makes it a little easier, and see it saved it like that.
So that's delivery or content or both?
I don't know what you mean.
Okay, so does that change the report saying, okay, the data on this report is going to encompass an entire quarter? Or does that tell it to, well, I guess it's the same thing, to send a copy every quarter?
Oh, it's going to run for for the date range that we're selecting.
It's going to encompass, the report's going to encompass an entire quarter.
Okay,
It's only when you schedule it do you state basically when you want it to run. You have to, if you want something to be encompassed in the report, this is where you need to do it in these filters.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
All right, what else?
I have a question. For UAT, are we going to have that customized report that was the attendance reporting, Erica? That Kushanda, I think her name was working on?
So there were 2 reports that Kanchana built for you, and she ended up building them out of a Spira 1. I think they were modeled almost exactly after the 2 types of reports you needed, Rochelle.
Yeah.
And so I believe one of them is definitely done, and I don't remember which one off the top of my head. I think Conchana had asked you which one was more important. She built that one first. And then I think another one either came in the release that Jeff's working on right now, or it's coming in a near future release. So I'll have to double check.
Yeah, I would need to know just where to go to test those.
Yeah, Rochelle, if I heard Erica correctly, those are coming from Aspera 1.
Yes, they're both coming from Mr. Sorry, I'm just pulling it up right now, Rochelle. So it looks like, so PCR, where is it? No, that's the wrong thing. Let me just take it as an action item, Rochelle, and I'll confirm for you which one or if both of them are available.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do we want to start a new ad hoc view off this domain or move on to another domain?
Can we go up a second? Let's say we wanted to show me the reservations made in December and give me a total of number of reservations made by the customer state.
Okay, let me start from the beginning. Now in this case, I can't clear out this view by using this button because I've already saved it, so it's just going to take me back to where it is. So I'm going to kind of rebuild from the beginning again. And customer activity domain. Select all.
And while she's doing that, is there any like greatest hits insights reports that maybe other states have created that are like in a shared library?
No, no, Rochelle, there are not. I mean, I will be honest with you, there is over 400 ad hoc views and reports that have been created by our clients. But they are, first of all, I would have to ask the other client if I can share it. And secondly, they're pretty specific to their business rules, configurations, et cetera.
Okay, so you said reservations made December, right? Okay, one other thing we can do that I haven't shown you yet on dates is we can say just month -1 here, and it will just pull the whole month. That's my favorite way to do it. I just didn't show it earlier. And you said by state, is that right? Okay, so I'm going to do this as a crosstab because you want to see counts by state, correct? And is that mailing state or physical state?
Physical state.
Okay, so I'm just going to double click state code. There's the states. And then I'm going to do counts. I have this under measures, the site reservation count. I'm going to double click that. And add it. Now remember, we're on sample data. So it's not quite all of them, or it might be all of them.
That's really cool, though. I love that.
Yeah, that was all of them. So there we go.
This is Karen. I have a question. So I saw under, I think it was under measures, I saw gift card usage. So my understanding was that POS information is not available in Insights yet. But I'm wondering if you are looking at gift card usage, if you use that in an ad hoc report here, is that just going to be incomplete data because it's not going to show any POS items where that gift card was used to make the purchase?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wouldn't cover for POS.
Okay, so that wouldn't be good to know. And then kind of as a follow-up, there was also daily entrance. So that's only going to be campers coming in. That's not going to include any actual attendance information.
So daily entrance in this sense is actually the specific Aspera 1 daily entrance functionality that you guys aren't using. So it won't be related to anything that Vermont is using in our system currently.
Okay, good to know.
Do you want me to save this one, Michelle? Sorry, did you say yes?
Yes.
Okay. What do you want me to call it?
Reservations by state, reservation count by state.
Or monthly.
Yeah.
Monthly reservation. Well, and let me show this. Oops. Well, no, because we did it for a month. Never mind. I'm going to save it as a view. You can always go change it to or add a report, add saving it as a report on later. I can type.
While you're doing that, this is Karen again. I noticed that under measures, it says point of sale purchase. If POS items aren't in there, what is that point of sale purchase item that's listed under permit? Directly underneath permit, yeah.
Yeah, right there.
What is that?
It's we never completed it. It was it got to a point, but it's not completed. So it was never signed off on as ready for use. And actually, I don't even know if the data's in there. Let me try. Take these off. The client we did for said that they could, that to keep it in there, knowing it wasn't, yeah, there's nothing, the structure's there, just no data in there.
This is Rochelle again. So as we build data during the UAT process, we're going to be able to combine Aspera 1 data with migrated data, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it's within insights within an hour. Usually quicker than that, but we say an hour in case something took a little bit longer than normal.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, anything else on this one? And we can always come back to it if you want to, if we want to move on to financial domain.
Well, I think Karen's going to want to see financial domain, so we should probably go there.
I had that
So-
feeling. All right, financial domain. Now, one thing about the financial domain is we have two domain groups, payments and refunds. That doesn't mean refunds are not included in payments. The issued refunds is included under the payments domain group. The refunds domain group is the whole refund process. So a refund can be approved, it could be initiated, and it can be issued. And there's records for each one of those. So we know the whole refund process under refunds. The payments just includes the ones that were actually issued. We cannot select both of these at the same time. We can only pick one or the other. I'm going to start with the payments one. Okay. And then the functionality of the ad hoc view is the same here. It's just different data. So Karen, would you like to pick out some things you'd like to see?
Tech stuff isn't, well, tech stuff should be set up, right, Erica? In theory? I want to look at something text related.
So there is tax stuff set up in Aspera 1 for when you go into test. just like I mentioned earlier, the taxes I don't think are split out on your migrated reservation. So I don't know if we will be able to pull tax data against your migrated information.
But there should be stuff in here from just even today.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, there will be a couple of test orders. I just don't know exactly what it'll be. Yep.
Let's see. Okay, so I changed the table.
Oh, that's right. That POs won't be in there.
Okay, so.
But surely somewhere in there, it's got to be a lean to.
Yeah, I think we do. You got your program.
Well, that was the point of sale item though, so it's not going to be in there.
Okay, so I'm looking at tax type, I'm sorry, fee type, and I'm searching on tax. I have two of them. And select them and hit apply. And then just to see what we're dealing with, I'm going to take payment details and throw it out here and see if we get anything back. And we don't. We do have some tax columns in here for when there is data for tax.
So since there's now, since the tax information isn't in here, can we do a report of revenue by site type at each park for the fiscal year to date?
Okay, we're going to take that slow. It's funny because these are word problems that I used to do in school. Okay. Okay, you said fiscal year?
Year to date.
So we have a column for payment fiscal year. I'm going to right click it, create filter.
And it's set up with state of Vermont fiscal year?
That's a good question. Erica, do you know that?
I'm sorry, say that one.
Assume Vermont's fiscal year is defined in AO UAT. Is that right?
So no, I'd have to double check. I thought that fiscal year was a feature of our licensing and privilege program. I don't know if that it's a feature of our camping program.
Then we do it on our side for insights. Let's test that.
Which on Insights, the default is July 1 to June 30.
Perfect.
Is that the right fiscal year?
Yeah.
Which one did you want to pick?
Fiscal year to date, so July 1st, 2019 to date.
So that would be the 2020 fiscal year, right?
Data going back to 1901, Michelle?
Ski Park's almost that old.
We go back to 1776. Okay, I'm going to just throw real quick a date out there to see if it. Okay, so it went back to the fiscal year 2020, went back to July 1, 2019. That's right, right? Okay, and you said by site type?
Yep. So
And park.
revenue by site type at each park.
Site type at each park. Okay, for payments, we have two different locations. So we have a revenue location and a collection location. Do you want revenue location, park?
Because the collection location, that wouldn't give you the revenue by site type at, like, at Elmore, for example.
Okay,
Would it?
I don't think so, no.
Wouldn't expect it to. Just wanted to clarify.
Karen, in this configuration, what collection location is where the money was collected. And the revenue location is where the money is going to. Some cases it may be the same, other cases it may be different. Think about your GL accounting, right? This is, I collected the money at Alice State Park, but it's going to Stillwater State Park. The revenue is for whatever reason.
So, and actually I need to turn this back to a crosstab because we are going to aggregate. Get rid of that and add it back on there. Okay.
Ellen's gonna go eat.
Yeah. Like, give me the data.
I mean, our Ellen, not your Ellen.
Yeah. It's gonna be like locked in a room, just like on data.
It's really fun to dig into this stuff. Okay, so for site type, this is designed a little different than the customer activity one, which had reservations broken out into their own domain categories. A site is a product, and I did this yesterday, and now I can't remember. Let's see, we want to filter on product category. I know that much. And we're going to pick site, apply, and then I believe it was product group had the site types in it. So this is one of those times you'd want to play with the data first to go, okay, site types in product group, I'm going to want that. And do we want to filter on site type or just by all of them?
All of them.
Okay, let me remove that. And I haven't shown you that. This little box to the very right gives you the options to remove a filter or move them up and down. And make sure you always hit apply at the bottom. So I'm throw product group out there. And a cross tab, it rolls it up. We have this little plus that we can expand. And if we don't want these totals, because sometimes it gets kind of messy if I don't really care about the total by the facility, I can right click the header and say delete row summary. So it removes it and I can add it back in if we want it. Okay, and then you said revenue. Is that right? It's under measures, payment details, the payment amount.
That's split.
Can you also add the payment count to that?
Count. Mm-hmm. Remember, see, this is where we see the top 100 rows because it's sample data.
Now, under the search bar underneath measures, the second item down is financial session. Now, is that going to give you lists of the financial sessions for each of these groupings, or?
This matches the financial session section of Aspera 1 that tells you, gives you more information here, the details. The financial session ID, when it was open, the status type, deposit amount, closed amount, or deposit date time, close date time, and if it was adjusted, and then these are the measures along with all that, the number of transactions, so on and so forth.
So can we build a report quickly to see financial session adjustments at each part for a given week?
Yeah.
Well, rolling.
But I have a question to ask Karen and Rochelle. Do you want us to save this before we create a new report?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, this is Ryan. At some point, it doesn't have to be this one, but it would be great if we could run through scheduling just one more time.
Okay.
On one more report.
And what would you like to call this one, Karen?
Revenue by site type?
Fiscal year.
Yeah, fiscal year. FY.
Okay, so for 1 week.
We did close the financial session today that had adjustments, so you should be able to do the current week.
Okay.
Unless that information hasn't.
Well, it's been an hour.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. It has been over an hour, so it should be.
So close date was this week?
Today.
Close date was today.
But I don't want to see financial sessions that were closed today. I just like basically the idea is to see any financial sessions that have adjustments made.
Oh.
I was just saying that we had one today, so if you were to run it for the current week, it should return data.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm going to filter on adjusted, true. And I'm going to go to a table because this is detailed stuff, I know. And I'm going to throw the ID out there and just some details, and we can go from here. There's 2 today that were closed today. What else do you want to see?
Is it possible to see the user who closed it?
Close user. Mm-hmm.
And if a deposit has been created?
Deposit date time.
That's cool.
And what about can we also add the deposited, whoever, the user that created the deposit?
Deposit user.
And the deposit tracking number?
No.
No, we don't have the deposit tracking number. Karen, that is something that is not included in Insights and will not be, because that's kind of part of the whole EFT, the whole financial process that needs to come from the source, not from Insights.
Okay. What about the Aspira assigned deposit ID?
That's not in there as well.
So how would I pull up a related deposit? I would have to go into the financial section itself. Like I'd have to go back into Aspira 1. I couldn't just see the deposit information.
Yes, Erica can elaborate on this. Aspira 1 has many financial reports that I'm sure meet your needs. What the purpose of this is and why we have this in there is if you see any kind of abnormality, you can do some deep diving into some of the details.
Okay, did you want to add any measures about these financial sessions?
Do you want to see the adjustment?
I do want to see, the original request was to see the adjustment.
Just the adjustment, is that good? Do you want me to save this?
Sure.
And because I started with a previous view that I had saved, it has it already in there, but I'm going to save it for something different. Adjusted financial session.
Yes.
One thing to note is I'm only filtering on financial sessions that are adjusted with no date range. So in the future, as this would grow, I would assume you may want to add a date range. Okay, what else do we want to see?
What's in the customer profile information? Is that like, like looking to see how much an individual? I'm confused as to why like customer birth date is an option under financial.
Can't talk. Why it's an option under the financial domain? We included the same, like for customer profile that is in many domains, we include the same data options in all of them. Even though if you may not use it, or there might be a need for it in the future if there's.
Yeah, and I think to your specific point, Karen, so that's under payments. So you might want to see, so let's say you run, you do a view for payments and you're wondering, maybe who made that payment. You can pull in some of the customer information. So you will see some overlap that way where like the customer domain has more information specific to customers and then payments. So you might see some overlap.
Yes.
Is there ever a necessity or ability to join domains?
There's not that ability, no. They're independent of each other.
Yeah, that's a limit based upon the platform, Rochelle, not us.
Okay.
I think I can answer this myself, but like the order details and the gift card information, again, that's going to be incomplete data if those fields are used in Insight.
Yes. Meaning like the POS is not in here yet?
Right. Like an order detail, like if I do a walk-in reservation, say at a campground, and also as part of that order, I also get an armload of firewood, that's not going to, is it going to show the order detail as far as, it wouldn't include firewood. So
That's a great question. Would the order total even include?
Yeah, would the total even include
The order
firewood?
will be there for the walk-in reservation, but the bundle of firewood would not be.
Even if it's one order that was placed, like it's all like done at the same time?
I'm with you.
So
I understand.
my understanding from your example is if I do a walk-in reservation and also in that order, I buy a bundle of firewood,
I want that.
of firewood, what you'll see in Insights is the walk-in reservation. You won't see the bundle of firewood as part of that order.
So like the payment, like the order will say, $54. It won't say have the order, the total paid as 61, or no.
It will say that the total paid of 61, even though the order says it's $54. Because
Okay, that's
we know that you've accepted $61. Yes, there's a difference of $7. And unfortunately, until we bring in POS, we don't know that that $7 is for that bundle of firewood.
I think Ryan wanted to go over scheduling again.
Yeah, I was playing around and I couldn't remember how to start the scheduling assistant.
Okay, we're gonna go back to view repository. The shared folders. And remember, it can only be the report type. Right click it and say schedule,
Oh, okay.
and then create schedule from there. And that gives you these tabs up to the top right. They don't stand out very much, but they're there that you need to, I cannot talk either. You've got to pick those options in each one in order to actually schedule it.
Okay, perfect. That was I was getting stuck on the right click to open up the scheduling.
Gotcha, yeah, the right click schedule. Okay, do we want to go back to the financial domain or take a look at the site utilization domain?
Let's go to site utilization for 20, please.
Okay. Are you going to pay me 20? All right, select all of them. Okay. And the purpose of this one is to take a look from a site perspective, when it's available, when it was booked, the days closed, just to give a view from the site. So looking at this, is there anything, and I'm going to expand this one because this is where like the actual detail stuff is. Is there anything y'all want to look at? I'm going to throw a few things out here.
figure out the difference between like an occupancy report and what we might do here.
Okay. I'm going to throw a few things out to get us started.
Can we say, for instance, I guess we don't have the data, or we might have a little. I'm thinking no-shows.
No shows. I don't think we can have an occupancy percentage, not a they booked it and didn't show up option in this one.
Okay, so can we do, just as an example, ranked occupancy by site type?
You want it back?
You know, like, I'm thinking of for the equivalent of the point of sale report, best and worst sellers for site occupancy.
Okay, by part?
So yeah, by part.
Okay,
So it's the best and the worst.
by park and site type?
By site.
By site,
Oh, by site.
not site type, by site.
Okay. And then the percentage occupied?
Yeah.
Okay. This is for all time. And then you want to sort it by from best to worst?
Yeah. So I have a question though. Does this include all reservations or just checked-in reservations?
It's occupied. So they had to have checked in.
Good.
Yeah.
Squirrel. It's the heavy hitter at Bombazine.
I said, does this look close to what you expect?
Scroll. Oh, we're just looking at sample data?
Yeah. Do you want me to do full?
Rochelle, here's an example of a report as you continue using Aspera 1 that you definitely will want to filter because, you know, as time goes, because this is going back all the way back in time, right?
Yeah.
This could take a while to load.
Good advice.
And because I sorted descending, it did it this way. So like that facility changed. You can do a top N values. So the top 5, the top 10, however you want to do it per park.
I'm sorry, why did the facility change?
Sort of, it took the top facility. Here, let me do this. So one thing to note down here, there's, you can click on this 2,470 more. It's going to tell me it could take a bit to return. I'm going to cross fingers that it doesn't. Okay, there we go. So it's sorted by the top one. So Stillwater State Park has the highest one, but then it still kept them all together and sorted. So it's basically sorting the parks by the highest one and then keeping the rest of the sites together. So it put all Stillwater State Park has the highest of all sites. And then Ricker Pond State Park had the next highest one. That makes sense?
Really, So
You
the
wanna show
longer the
them?
site's been on the system, the more it gets evened out. Because I noticed that the Burton Island cabins are way up there, but they've only been on the system 2 years.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When in fact they're really not.
Well, and last year they were booked more than
Right.
31% of the time. But yeah, it would be interesting to see the last
5 years,
5
3
years.
years.
Yeah.
And we can do that from the site inventory date. So I'm going to just do year -5.
Sure.
That changed.
Mhm. People don't
There
like
was-
parks last 5 years.
Guy, what's the site inventory date? Is that like the date the inventory was created?
That is it's basically every day for the year. And then we mark if it was available. But one thing I just realized I did, year -5 is 2020 -5. So it's just looking at 2015, the year 2015. So we want actually greater than, or is before, or no, I'm sorry, is on or after 2015. So it includes, right? We want for the last 5 years. There we go. Now it's back.
And now could you say the top 5, just limit it to the top 5 in each park?
So filter, I right-clicked this up here, filter top in values. It defaults to 5. This right here, show aggregate of unranked values. If this is checked, what that means is it takes 6 through whatever and places it all in one bucket. If you don't care about that, uncheck it. And then we want to apply it across the row group so it does the top 5 for each facility.
That is so cool.
So would you be able to use this report? Sorry, this is Ryan. Would you be able to use this report to do like the percentages each year for the last 5 years to kind of see trends, see which sites are getting more popular and which ones are becoming less popular?
Yeah, let's try. I don't want to say definitely. Let's see what we can do. And on this last 5 years, I didn't do that fiscal year. I did that calendar year. Is that okay? Or should it be fiscal year?
Calendar year is great.
Okay. So then we want to see calendar year 2, right? One thing I should have done is I filtered on inventory date. I really could have filtered on inventory calendar year right here. Same thing. This is just a faster way to do it, probably calendar year. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to add it to the columns. And let's see what happens. This is where the real pivot table comes in. Then you have row columns and or row detail data or attribute data. That's the word I'm looking for. And then column attribute data across the top.
Oh, cool.
Well, we lost our top 5. So it looks like we can't do a top when we have, or wait, hold on. Can I do it this way? No, I cannot. Oh, right there. So on the total, let's see what this does. I'm going to uncheck that and check that. Okay.
Pretty cool.
So now we got it back. And just a side note, if y'all wanted to get rid of this, we can do that and we can see the whole thing on one screen. There we go.
It seems to only be showing us 2020 data and then the total.
2020 should be 0. They're checked in.
Right.
I'm
Did you
sorry.
hear any of that?
No, what was that?
We shouldn't be seeing zeros in the 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19 columns. And if a site has to be checked in to be occupied, we should see zeros in the 2020 column. Because our parks are closed until May. So nobody's will be able to check in until May.
So I'm wondering if, and again, this is a percentage, so we don't know a count. But I'm wondering if it's actually not, are we sure it's looking at check-in status, Sky, or is it looking at like just the completion of the reservation?
It's looking at check-in for sure.
Okay, so maybe it's just a few reservations we've done since last week.
Yeah, it's what this
we're getting
is.
The percentages.
Yeah, what we migrated is active reservations, going forward, right? And Rochelle, we are going to be bringing in the history into Insights, but you will not see it this way. It will be a separate domain called historical.
So we won't be able to actually use this report then with our historical data.
No, you will not, because I'm bringing in the data, and this was written down as is in the legacy system.
So then how did we do year-to-year comparison reports?
From our last Insights demo, I just have written down that we can't. We won't be able to using Insights to compare legacy data because it's separated.
Okay. And that's probably why Kachana is making us those reports.
Correct. That is why. Because what Insights does is Insights is based upon Aspera 1. So whatever goes into Aspera 1 is what goes into Insights. And since some of this historical data is not going into Aspera 1, I can't bring it over the same way as this data into Insights. What I can do is move it directly over to Insights, but it won't look the same. It's going to look like your legacy system looks.
So all the -1 reservations we saw in previous domains were future reservations for 2020.
Correct.
I believe so, yeah, from the data I saw.
Okay. Okay.
But they were made in like December for future.
Right. Okay.
So I added counts on here, occupy counts, to throw something else on there. Is there anything else y'all would want to see on this one, or is this one no longer?
Are you going to show us charts at all?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to show us charts?
Oh, I can, yeah. Let me.
Sky, a really good one to show on charts is reservation by sales channel.
Okay.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's go back to the customer activity domain because that's more to work with. Did we want to save this one?
Sure.
Okay.
Actually, no, we don't. Exactly, it's all zero. Yeah.
All right, customer activity. And Ellen, did you say reservation counts by sales channel?
Yes.
So on charts, we could go straight to chart and work with it there. I personally like to do it in a crosstab first because I can see the data, see the numbers, make sure it looks like I'm expecting, and then switch it to a chart. So since we said by sales channel, that's under order. Double click it out there. And then I'm going to do reservation counts from the measures. Site res count. think that looks pretty good. This is sample data. This is for all time. We can modify it on the chart if we want to look at it differently. So I'm going to change the crosstab to chart. And charts are all data. It took away my option to change it to sample. And it does it as one big block. It just took a stab at what we were trying to do and said, here's your total. But we know we want it broken up by sales channel. So we have this data level option over here. It defaults to total and it goes to sales channel. So we're going to slide it over and then it breaks it up. And we can break this up further, or we can change the type of chart it is. It defaults to bar chart, but we have this little gear right here. And if you just hover over it, it pops up these two options. If you click chart types, here's all of our options. We have columns. I'm sorry?
For a specific date range?
We can.
No, so what we're looking at now is, let me see if I understand this right.
Yeah.
It's all time,
Okay.
but 2020 reservations.
Gotcha. I'm thinking about that comparison chart that I sent, or that spreadsheet that I sent you to help with staffing. That's where my mind is going with it.
So for reservations happening in 2020, web number 1, call center number 2, and field number 3, which is making me happy if we're not able to take reservations by phone, that field's the lowest.
The other thing you can do in here is if you bring in site type, so you can even break it out even further and take a look by site type, the sales location.
Pretty cool.
Or you could even do it by facility, but it's going to get really crowded because you have like 55 facilities.
If I add it here, it looks like.
And you see how the data level slider on the right-hand side now has a third tick. Maybe. Yeah. So there's a lot of things you can do with this. A couple of notes. What Sky said is true. Chart is always full data. So you need to be a little bit patient because it is creating the query and then giving you the UI, in other words, the chart, right? The really great thing about these charts, and this is what many of our clients use, is if you go to save as, you have, export, you have a PowerPoint option at the very bottom. So many of our clients create a chart, save it as a PowerPoint, and then put it in their slide deck.
That's cool.
It exports really well to PowerPoint.
Where does it go?
It opened into another tab and was spinning, and then it goes to the bottom for me to open.
Download.
Well, yeah, it fits it onto the page, but because of the so many site types per, we'd actually probably want to do, let's try it this way.
And Rochelle, on your computer, where this goes when you download it, it goes to your download file.
Yep.
That doesn't look any better. Let me try change the chart type to stacked. Let's see what that does. A lot of times it's just playing and getting them in the right order. Oh, you know what I want? I think I want this right here. So now by adding sales channel to columns, I have two sliders, a column 1 and a row 1. So column's going to break up by sales channel, and then rows I'll break up by site type.
Oh, that's cool.
For a little color. Actually, if I go back to this, yeah. So that does bar comparisons within each site type. And another export we haven't seen yet that I'll show you because this one doesn't download, it stays in the tab, is PDF. Oh, there it goes. PDF also exports. That's a better export visually than what we did in PowerPoint. PowerPoint would look the same way with this one.
Does it always export in portrait
Into what?
orientation?
That's a great
Does
question.
it always export in export in portrait orientation, or can you export it in landscape?
No, it always exports into portrait.
Okay.
But then we can just switch it using PowerPoint, right on? The tools in PowerPoint.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can you show me what it looks like to print one, like to a printer, and what options you have for print preview and all that?
You would have to print it from an export. Whatever PDF offers, PowerPoint offers.
Okay.
So, and again, in order to print something, you have to download it into one of those formats and then print it. Because if you try to print from the screen, you'll get everything. You know, you'll get the title bar that it says Aspera 1 and all that. So that's why they make you download it. So you just get the ad hoc view or report.
Okay.
In here, this option here, you can turn off the title if you didn't want to put a title on it, and it takes out that.
This is great.
Good.
Love, 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 love.
Do you want us to save this report to this chart so you have something to show?
Please.
Okay.
And this is reservation. Oh my gosh. Counts by site type and sales channel.
Thanks, Guy. So Rochelle, I think you'll have a lot of fun playing with the data. I mean, we do, as you can tell.
Yeah.
I know you guys are going to start on Tuesday. Is that correct? Because Monday's a holiday. Right. And even though we're going to be reloading, in other words, remigrating into UAT, therefore reloading in Insights, these reports that we saved will still be there.
They will be there.
Yes, they will be there. They'll be in that shared folder.
And at what point is our historical data going to be there?
I believe it's right after go live. And it will be a separate domain. If you go back to create domain, Sky.
Ad hoc view.
Ad hoc view, sorry. There will be a separate domain called VTSP historical.
Okay, maybe I'm sure I'm forgetting something because my brain's quite full of Aspera stuff. Why are we waiting to go live for the historical data? I would think we would want that for testing for UAT.
I'm bringing it in as is. So if you remember that what Lloyd gives me is like 5 different databases with, let's say, 8 tables, I'm bringing it in exactly as is. I'm not doing anything to it. So it's going to look just like it does on the back end of your legacy system.
Question. It's more of why isn't that historical data going in sooner than after go live? Essentially.
So if you recall, so from our data migration or data scoping sessions, and this kind of ties to what Ellen was saying about it going into this separate domain. The historical isn't going into Aspera 1. Right. So it's not going to, And it's not going into Aspera 1 because it's not being mapped to Aspera 1 fields. So it's going to be in that separate domain. And that domain is scheduled to come after go live.
I still don't get it, why we can't at least have a sampling of our historical data prior to go live. Even if you're not doing anything to it, even more so because you're not doing anything to it. What?
It would only affect insight.
Right, it only affects insight, so why can't we have it?
So Rochelle, I'll take a look at the schedule and see what I can do. In the scope of work, it states right after go live, but I'll see what I can do. Let me take a look at the schedule, okay?
All right.
Maybe if we're lucky, we can get it in before go live. I can't answer you right now. I really do need to take a look at the schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Any other overall questions?
No, it's great.
Good. I hope you guys have fun playing with this. If you have any questions or anything, please reach out to Stacia and Erica. And we'll check in with you. I'll make sure I check in with you, Rochelle, make sure everything is going okay. All right?
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. You have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Erica, are you still on the line? Oh, no, we're going to give a call. Because I have to bring back up the other one.